Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
I'm Brent.
And today we're going to talk about the Three Stooges. But before we do, I've got some feedback here. First bit of feedback comes from our newest Patreon supporter, Lauren Giroux. He says, I totally share John's feelings regarding Stardust. Slick looking, frantic action, but essentially an Asteroids clone with a layer of polish. The gameplay does not extend the original concept enough, as John mentioned. Do you know why I picked this episode, or this email? He's basically saying that everything I said was correct.
I can't wait for the next one.
The shopping system showing so late hints that the developers lacked experience. I don't know about that. Team 17 had been in the game for a while. But like Shadow of the Beast, and it was this was Bloodlust or whatever, right? Or Bloodhouse.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So maybe they were new to the game.
They didn't have much.
Yeah, like Shadow of the Beast or Lionheart. Like Shadow of the Beast or Lionheart. It's a nice tech demo, but lacks substance.
That's harsh.
Yeah, and he also had some interesting thoughts about, or he filled us in about the STE. We talked about the STE, the Atari STE last week.
Right.
We weren't sure where it fell in the timeline.
No.
He said it inherits the TT's Blitter, which the TT was the model that came out before it, but has some unique features. It's got a 4096 color palette, hardware scrolling, and sample-based audio like the Amiga. So it basically gave the ST Amiga 500 capabilities, but it came too late. Too little, too late.
I wonder how many of those were sold. It could not have been. I've never heard of that. I'm not an Atari aficionado, but I know a thing or two.
Right.
Have you ever heard of that before that one?
No, not really. I mean, the only time, maybe just reading about it in Retro Gamer, but that's it. Now, Paul Kitching came to us from a different viewpoint.
Which one?
This is Paul Kitching, not of Viva Amiga fame, but of the Bedrooms to Billions fame.
Okay.
He said that we were too harsh on the game, and that if you use the spacebar, you've got different weapons, and that makes things a little bit more exciting. He also said that the tunnel level that we did, the reason why it was so hard is because it was the last tunnel level of the game, and the earlier tunnel levels aren't so bad.
The truth of the matter is I feel like a jackass about the whole spacebar thing, because I remember playing this back in the day and absolutely had multiple weapons. I totally had been playing it without them. So, there you go. That's what 20 years does to you.
Yeah. But I did go back and replay the game with the spacebar. I put in some codes and did some different things. And it is a more fun experience, definitely, with those extra weapons. So look for that going up on the site pretty soon on the YouTube channel. News. So, Aaron, last week we lamented the fact that the company is no longer there. I actually translated what was up there on the site, that Latin phrase, and it translated to "He who seeks finds." So maybe he took down the site, but is going to be bringing it back later in a different way, in a different place.
Or maybe it's somewhere out there now. No one knows.
Hidden.
So, but in its place, I followed some links on Indie Retro News, our favorite site. And there's actually a site called GamesNostalgia.com.
All right.
And they have a bunch of games, not as many as the company, but all their games, I'm pretty sure, work on Windows 8, Windows 10. GamesNostalgia.com. Just click on Amiga, and they have a bunch of these EXE wrapper
Is it
games.
the same? Is it done by the same outfit? Are they the same files from the company, or are they did in their own?
That's a good question.
It's hard to say.
Well, the company, they're watermarked. You double click on the EXE, it comes up the company. So,
yeah.
We're going to have to investigate.
That's
further.
good news. At least, no matter who made them, at least they're there.
Yeah. What do you have for news this week?
Just a couple little items. I saw that it's funny, this news came around. I'm not even sure I picked it up. But an old Amiga game, I'm trying to, the best way to describe this. There was an Amiga version of Ghosts and Goblins. Okay, everybody remembers that, the Capcom classic. The cracked version of it had introduced things into the game that screwed it up, right? So an outfit has released a new cracked version that works. So I think that's good, despite the fact that it's cracked. Again, we're going down this wacky road. I read your little article you did on piracy, right? I thought about this quite a bit. And I mean, I don't know. We always get in this weird area on the show where I'm like, can I talk about this? Am I going to look like a jerk? You know, the Amiga died so many years ago. All this stuff, you know, I don't see a problem with it. I'll be honest with you. So I'm not even going to address the gray area stuff anymore. I'm just going to tell you what it is. If you're morally against it, and that's cool, just don't download it.
I think that's a great tack to take.
That said, if you want to play Ghosts and Goblins, the cracked version where the crack is properly executed and the game doesn't screw up, we'll link it up for you. It looks good. I'll watch some video of it. There's a new retro platform that's coming out. It's called same outfit that's doing the Ghosts and Goblins. It's called Squarix 4, I think, SQRXZ 4.
Wow, that's a lot of consonants.
Yeah. This I've not played or tried, but it was getting a lot of good hype. So it looks halfway decent from what I read. So, you know, someone out there can try it. I'll probably give it a shot this week when I get a spare moment. So those things are going on. Really not much else. I saw they released a new revision for the Vampire 2 that added some stuff. It took away a few things that were causing problems.
Oh, that's great.
And again, it looks... They added faster IDE support, among other things. It looks sharp.
This is just a software revision or firmware update.
Well,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the Vampire 2 at its foundation is a programmable array. So they're basically reprogramming the chip for
making
all
it more
purposes.
efficient for.
And so that's how they've added HDMI. That's why they added all this hardware that they knew they'd get around to. And man, I'm licking my chops to get hold of some of this stuff. They've also, I found a couple wacky things. I guess they're Amiga related. If you're someone that doesn't have an Amiga, they have ported Cannon Fodder to the PC, and you can. And I guess the PC never got a release of Cannon Fodder, or maybe it was a substandard release because they've ported over the Amiga version. They've also ported over a game called Rough-and-Tumble.
Both of those things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're looking at the same links that I was. Well, what those things are EXE wrappers of WinUAE and an Amiga.
Oh, is that what? That's what I thought they were. They've made them executable, but again, I'm guessing that the PC didn't, because Rough and Tumble, I believe it's like a platforming game. I've never played it.
I don't know, but I know that Cannon Fodder definitely got a PC release because I used to own it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
For the PC, how did it play? Do you remember?
It plays. Yeah, it's the same game.
It's exactly the same.
I had the CD-ROM version.
So this is probably like a convenience release, if you want to play the Amiga.
If you want to play the
experience.
Amiga version without an emulator.
Yeah, it mentioned they were UAE based, so I assumed that that was something to do with some kind of emulation. So I guess porting is not the best way to put it, but they've. And I think I know the company has a release of Cannon Fodder because I've played it.
Yeah, so maybe this is just somebody else's version of doing whatever they do.
And I know the company's version works on Windows 8 or 7 or 8 because I've played it on there too. So there's another one. Rough and Tumble, I've heard a lot about that. We have to give that a shot.
I think it sounds like a mascot platformer. You got Rough, he's a cat. Tumble, he's a hedgehog.
He's a cat?
I don't know. I'm making things up. It's my design doc. You in?
Yeah. I don't know.
A cat and a hedgehog. No dog, no mouse. Interesting direction.
Yeah. That's why you're not a game designer, Boat.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You got anything else, or are we ready to dive right into our main topic?
Unless you've got any other feedback, did anyone hang us up to dry on Stardust?
Well, like I said, Paul.
Aside from Paul.
No, it was our two main feedbacks were from Laurent. Laurent, I think that's how you say it. He sent me an email with some tips. I'm trying to incorporate them.
You mean tips on pronouncing his name?
Yeah, that's really the hardest thing about this podcast.
Oh, I do have more news. Let's talk about my new toy.
Okay. You all go to close-up cam. It's not available right now.
Yeah. Look, everyone. I got a Game Gear for $5 from a flea market. The guy said it didn't work. And guess what? It does work. The guy did not have the contrast turned up. So this is sort of...
Now, see, he's going to see this, and now he's going to want more money.
No, it's too late now. I like any kind of handheld that has 6 AA batteries.
Right. You get about 30 minutes.
You can't see this, but both the battery covers are here. and it works.
It doesn't seem like it's working. Right
well,
now.
these old things, you have to kind of mess around with
See
a
that
little
bad
bit.
boy for a second while you talk.
And it's fun. I've played with it, and you can get. There's actually a multi-cart for it. The games I bought the games separately. I got Mortal Kombat 2 and Super Columns.
Oh.
Right? And Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which I've heard this is not very good.
It was no Sonic 2 for the Game
No,
Gear is actually great.
I've heard this is the worst of the Sonics.
Well, I don't.
And then, I don't know. I played it and
I
tried hard.
disagree. Yeah, I like
and then I also got, which I don't know where it's at, but I got World Class Leaderboard Golf.
Ooh.
The classic that had the real audio in it or whatever. This I don't think has the real audio, but it's still kind of neat. So I got the games. I think these 4 games cost me $10. So I got $15 in it.
That's
It was a
great.
good deal. I also picked up a. Which I didn't
There
bring.
it is. There's World Class
Oh.
Leaderboard Golf.
I must have had it turned upside down. Yeah, World Class Leaderboard Golf. I like this golf game. I also picked up a Sega Genesis or Mega Drive's 32X for $5. Now the 32X didn't have any cables, so I'm looking forward to trying it though. The I always consider the Genesis sort of like the. I know this technically the Amiga CD32 was the brother system, but I consider the Genesis sort of the console sister of the Amiga. They have a lot of the same ports and stuff, so I'm kind of playing both sides of it. But yeah, those are my pickups this week. What do you think?
He's so engrossed he can't even comment.
Yes, woo!
So that sounds great. I think most of my pickups. This is our first show back since I've been on vacation. Is that right, or did we do a show with Stardust? I guess Stardust was my first show back since we went on vacation.
I think we did Stardust. Yeah.
But I haven't been playing, or I haven't been buying anything lately. But I have been playing. We shot some videos for 1000 Miglia.
I saw that.
And 4x4 SUV autocross, something like that. It's a game where they actually want you to flip your car, like in Lotus where you hit the log to go over the thing. Well, in this game, you hit the log, you flip end over end, and then land on your feet to cross.
I actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is that an arcade port?
I don't. It's definitely not. It's like a Lotus style view. It's
Yeah,
not like
I remember an
Ivan
arcade
Stewart.
game where they did that. So
This is also a game where if you hit the log on the side, you go up on 2 wheels, like the front and the back wheel, and continue on
like
along.
you're the Duke Boys.
Right. We also recorded just before the show some Amigos Plays videos of Dragon's Lair 1, 2, and 3. I may not release Dragon's Lair 3. We didn't get far in that one, but I'm definitely going to release Dragon's Lair 2
That used to be
and
your.
1.
It was Dragon's Lair 3. Which one was that? Is that that's not? None of those are.
I've never heard of 3.
So that's just a continuation of the first 2, right?
It is
None of those are
based in
Time
the same
Warp.
universe as Time Warp, which was 2.
Oh,
Yeah. So we got that stuff coming up. Dreamcatcher had a great article up about it's called A Little Consolation about the CD32. So check that out.
Made me sad.
Like I said, all the stuff. There's all kinds of stuff. We try and put something up every single day over on AmigosPodcast.com to fulfill your Amiga fix for the day. So check all that stuff out. But I think it's now time to move on to the Three Stooges.
yes.
Now, before we start with the game, Aaron, would you consider yourself to be a Three Stooges expert?
Expert? No. Now I know a guy who is. I would say that I'm an aficionado.
An aficionado. Why don't you give us a quick rundown of the history of the Stooges?
Well, the history of the Stooges is. I mean, gosh, we could take a whole podcast, but I'll expedite it. Basically, the Stooges were a vaudeville act. There's a guy named Ted Healy. He was Ted Healy and his Stooges. And the original trio were Moe, Larry, and Shemp. Right?
SHIMP.
I think it's E. SHEMP.
Okay,
SHIMP.
that makes sense.
Yes.
For those of you, I don't know, I'm assuming, I think the Stooges were pretty much worldwide, but I could be wrong. So if you're not familiar with the Three Stooges, the ones you really need to know are Moe Howard. Moe was the guy with a bowl haircut, and he's sort of like their leader. Then you've got Larry Fine, Larry, which is a guy with a crazy haircut. And then you've got some revolving Stooges at that point. The number one Stooge was Curly Howard, or just Curly. and he was the bald, kind of fat Stooge. Then you had the secondary Stooges, which really it's not fair to Shemp because Shemp was an original Stooge. Shemp is hard to explain. He's sort of got a crazy, longer than Moe haircut, and he was sort of he really wasn't anything like Curly. He was just his own Stooge. Then you had Joe Besser, who was a Stooge. He was sort of a tubby comedian. He was sort of a comedian that worked with Abbott and Costello and their act, and he was pretty popular there. But he came over to the Stooges when Shemp died. And then you had the final guy, Joe DeRita. He was the guy that went on tour with the Stooges. So back to the vaudeville. The Stooges had a vaudeville act. They ended up breaking away from Healy, and they went and signed a contract with Columbia Motion Pictures, to make shorts. They made short films and basically these would be showed in cinemas, in between movies, before movies, after movies, basically wherever you could stick them.
And around what time did the first shorts start coming out?
The 1930s, I believe, was when the first one came out. It was either late 20s or early 30s. It was pretty early on. They made several hundred shorts. The first bunch were with Shemp, and then Shemp left the act and wanted to go solo, and did. And so they brought in Curly. Curly came in, and they made the middle chunk, and probably their most popular stuff was with Curly. Curly was the big fat goof, and they had good chemistry, the three of them. Curly, unfortunately for him, he lived he was like a 1940s John Belushi type. He was just crazy, drinking, women, drugs, craziness. So anyway, he ended up rendering him in bad health, and he had to step down from Stooging, and so the Stooges asked Shemp to come back. Shemp was actually having a successful solo career, but he agreed to come back because he didn't want Moe and Larry to not have any means to support themselves.
Do you think the two Stooges just wouldn't have flown? You had to have all three?
They would have gotten someone else. I think Shemp probably underestimated their draw. But, I mean, at this point, you've got to remember the Stooges weren't a phenomenon. They were popular, but they weren't the thing that they became. So Shemp came back for another long run, and with the agreement that he would stay until Curly got better. Curly didn't get better. He passed away. And so Shemp ended up sticking with the act all the way up until he died. Now, Curly died in 52, and Shemp died in 55. And both died young. Curly was only 48, and Shemp was only 60, so they died pretty young. So at this point, Moe and Larry looked for people to replace Shemp. Shemp was, like I said, they wanted someone more like Curly than Shemp. And so they looked around, and they had their choices, but they didn't get the one they wanted. The studio wanted someone contracted to Columbia, and so they ended up bringing in Joe Besser. Joe Besser, again, he'd been a pretty popular comedic figure on Abbott and Costello, and he had his own sort of thing. He came in. He is the only Stooge that got the smack Moe back effect. He got to fight back occasionally, and their act was okay. So in 52, I believe, Columbia just said, okay, you fulfilled your contract, you're fired. And they fired all three of them. And or not 52, it would have been a little bit later than that. But anyway, they got fired, 57, something like that. And so they went on the road. And Joe Besser couldn't go on the road. He had a sick relative, so they recruited a new Stooge, Joe DeRita. Now, at this time, he was another comedic figure, a vaudeville guy. So at this point, they're traveling on a road show, doing their Stooge stuff. And all the Columbia shorts that were being played during these movies, they got sold into TV, and these became very popular, way more popular than the movies because more people were seeing them. And the popular ones were by far the Curly ones. And so they had Joe. They said, "Listen, why don't you shave your head?" And they renamed him Curly Joe DeRita. So when you hear Larry Moe and Curly Joe was Joe DeRita, the last Stooge. They toured forever. They were the most popular act for a long time on the road, and right into the 60s. And then finally, they were making more movies. They'd made some movies. They made more movies.
Did they actually have feature-length
movies?
They had feature like the Marx Brothers?
They had like 8.
Wow.
They had a lot.
What is the most famous? What's the duck soup of the Three Stooges?
They did one color one. It was Snow White and the Three Stooges. That's the one that comes to mind. I'm not saying it's the best, but it was the one that was in color. That's what pops in my head. They did a lot of cowboy stuff. They did everything all across the game.
Would you say that most of their fame comes from just the television syndication of the shorts, though?
Certainly.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. But the Stooges also did cartoons. They did, and they would shoot more footage that was in color for the cartoons. They're little buffers, and it was that which was rare. I've seen some of those, and they're neat. The Stooges, they toured and toured and toured. They were going to be constantly were getting booked to do movies and spots and guest appearances, and literally right up to the last minute when Larry had a stroke, and Larry couldn't go anymore. His career was over, and so they replaced him with another guy. It gets a little hazy right through here, and eventually they had finally just had to shut it down. I think Mo finally passed away. I think it was 75 when Mo finally died. So he had a long life, but they stopped making Stooge stuff around 70. Mo died in 75.
What did you think about it? That's a 40-year run, from 30 until.
But if you haven't seen the Stooges, basically these three goofs, they go on these wacky adventures. They're painters, they're doctors. They get mistaken for dignitaries, political dignitaries, whatever. Plus they'll have fantasy stuff. They'll be, like I said, Snow White and stuff like that. But the crux of their act is their wacky, accident-prone behavior. They'll occasionally smack the crap at each other, and that's pretty much the gag. But it worked for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. And so taking all that forward, in 87, Cinemaware licensed the Three Stooges, which I believe was their first. We were talking about this earlier. It could have been their only licensed game. I don't know, but I think it was certainly their first. And they outsourced the game to another firm, which was Incredible Technologies, and with tight overseeing from John Cutter, because they'd been burnt before when they outsourced Defender of the Crown. And so John Cutter was hovered over these people. From what I read, he was always present, and they produced the Three Stooges, the game, which, like I said, came out in 87 on the original chipset. 2 discs. This was the first time you've played it, you said, right? That you ever played.
Oh, no, I played this I played this a lot on
NES.
Yeah.
And this was ported to a few different systems. In fact, more than I thought. And some of these I looked at, I was like, I can't even believe that happened. According to what I saw, it's got an Apple II GS. Was that the nice color?
It's basically the Amiga version of the Apple II.
Right. So that was the top end of the Apple II.
Yeah.
The C64, the Game Boy Advance, weird, right? The PC. I've seen the PC version.
Now, there's a lot of Amiga games that get ported to the Game Boy Advance. I never realized that before we started.
Now, I read that there was a re-release of this for the PC, which I've not seen, so I don't know what it looks like. I'm anxious to see it. It says here Sony PlayStation.
Yes. It was a different type of game. I mean, it was the same game, but it had more. There was more stuff.
Mm-hmm. And also the Tandy got a special sound version for it, which I had that Tandy. Sound was better. And then, like I said, there's a digitally remastered version for the PC and Mac in 2002. So you got to think that's 15 years after the original was out. That's kind of wacky. To sum up the game, they wanted to make this and the reasoning behind this game was they wanted to make this like a board game, effectively. And so the crux of the game is you play the Stooges. At the beginning, there's a little cutscene where an evil bad guy is taking over an orphanage because they can't pay the money that they're owed, and they've got to come up with $5,000 or the orphanage is shut down and all the kids are kicked out. And they allude to the fact that if you can make $10,000, you can make repairs on the orphanage as well as pay off the money that's owed. And so that's the basis for what it, in essence, is a group of mini games. Which is, it's funny. This game sort of is like a Wii game in a weird way. Wii games always have that mini game thing going on, or
like Mario Party,
or a Mario Party game. Yeah, you almost randomly pick different events, and then you do those events.
Yeah. The only difference is that in Mario Party there are hundreds of mini games.
That's true. Again, 2 discs, 87. So you got to give it a little bit of leeway on that. But yes. And more games would have been great. I would like to, this game would. There's two things this game could use to make it real, to update it. It would be great. More events, multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, make it like a true board game.
Right.
That would be awesome.
It would be great. This game screams for multiplayer.
Yeah, it really does. But you, for those of you who haven't seen the game, you come to a screen where there are like 5 or 6 squares, and a hand moves between the different squares. And some will have like a money sign, and some will have jobs, some will have like a trivia notice, and some will have mouse traps on them. And some will also have the banker will come up occasionally. So your hand moves around. You hit the button to stop the hand. Well, if you stop the hand, it randomly moves. If you stop the hand on a job, you go to do that job, and that's a mini game. If you stop the hand on money, the guys just walk over. They find a little bit of money. If you stop your hand on the banker, he'll take some money. If you stop your hand on a mouse trap, the mouse trap swings open and knocks and basically cuts off a finger. And when you run out of fingers on your hand, game over.
It's not very graphic.
It's not.
It's cartoon.
Right. I mean, in essence, that's the game. You've got, I believe you've got 30 days. I think you've got 30 days to get the money. And if you get the money, you get 1 of 3 endings. Either you don't get the money, or you lose all your fingers. You get the bad ending where the guy forecloses on the orphanage and just sits there and cackles.
Yeah, that's correct. You've got 30 days to earn enough money. So if you watch our playthrough, we were about probably, I think we were
10
days in.
And he wasted 3 of those. We were doing pretty well.
I wasted 4.
Yeah.
We had $1,700 bucks.
We might have had a shot.
Yeah.
The banker's name. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I fleece him.
Yeah. The Stooges had this thing for these bad puns, and they like Dewey, Cheatham, and Hal, and stuff like that. The lawyers, but so the endings are, number 1, you don't get the money, foreclosure, and you know how when we were playing the playthrough, the game just sort of stopped and sat there, everybody laughed. I remember that happening to me. I don't know if you can, even on the Amiga you could get out of that. And then secondly, you could make enough money to pay off the mortgage, but not make repairs, and so they just basically thank you. And then the third ending, the good ending, if you get
there's 2 more endings.
Okay.
There's one where you just repair the house.
Mm-hmm.
And
then for if you get $10,000, then you pay off the mortgage and repair the orphanage.
Right, and you get but then you get the wedding. You get to marry the orphanage owner's daughters. I assume it, whether they're daughters. Anyway, I guess they're very impressed with your money and they marry you. It's kind of weird, but
that is weird.
And that's the game. The mini games in it are where the gameplay comes in. Everything else.
Before we start with the mini games, something that's neat is that the board is actually a board game. It's a one-way strip of squares. So the squares that you get on day 1 are always going to be those squares.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and on the original game, if you look at the manual, there's a card and it lays out the first 30 squares for you.
I know that I have, my buddy has a copy of this game. I've never owned it. And the manual in this thing's robust. Mm-hmm. It's a very robust manual. There's a lot of history and stuff in it. That's neat, though. Again, it goes back to what they were after.
Yeah,
there's
180 spaces on this board. It's a one-way track.
That's neat.
Yeah.
And something else I read, that the bad guy in it was based now, of course, I read this. I don't know because I've never seen what this guy looks like, but it was based on their old manager, the evil guy, Ted Healy, that was their original manager. They sort of took that likeness and brought it over. Before we talk about the mini games, let's just talk about the graphics and the music. What did you guys think?
Spectacular.
Yeah, the best graphics of any licensed title that I've seen on the Amiga.
In '87, very old, very early in the run of the Amiga. It looks great.
Yeah,
smooth animation.
Yeah, it's clever.
Repetitive sound, but very good sound.
Yeah, and let's talk about. I guess we should touch this before we go any further. When this game starts on the Amiga, the game loads up and it says "Defender of the Crown" in big beautiful letters, just like the opening of "Defender of the Crown." And the music starts dun 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 dun, and then the Stooges walk in, and they talk. They're like, "What is this, a kids game?" Mm-hmm. And then Mo goes, "You idiots!" and he smacks both those guys. And then the game turns over to Three Stooges, and he says, "This is more like it," and they walk off. So it makes you believe that you're loading up the wrong game.
Yeah, that there's been a mistake, and Cinemore sent you the wrong game in the package or something.
Now I'd heard that on the Nintendo version, it's Ghostbusters 2 was the game that comes up.
And I never understood that as a kid. I just thought, I was like, well, that's weird, and then I went on.
It's a good gag
because Cinemaware, maybe the publisher of the NES,
was that put out by Activision on there?
I didn't know enough about the industry to.
I think
to notice
Activision
those
had
things when I was a
Ghostbusters
kid.
too. Yeah, there was some licensing thing, but or maybe Defender Crown just wasn't on the NES.
It was.
It was.
Yeah.
But so the graphics, the caricatures of the Stooges are great. I mean, they
Yes.
could not be better. They're cute little guys. They look like the Stooges, but they're, the art is stylistically done in a way that it's just beautiful. It's cute. It's lush. I mean, they do a great job. The way the guys move is good. This is one of the early games to have. It's one of Cinemaware's first games, maybe the first, to have digitized graphics in it. They took stills from the show and they took audio from the show. And the way the game starts, it looks like an old movie reel start, and it counts down, which is awesome. So everything about this game screams like the little touches were there. The reason this game was even brought forth was because Robert Jacob was he was the guy that was running Cinemaware, and he wanted to make games based on movies and old properties. He was a Stooges guy, and he thought this would be a perfect game to bring out. The IP wasn't real expensive at the time, and it worked. He brought it out, and it was a labor of love. So let's talk about some of the mini games. Which ones did you like? Which ones did you didn't like?
Well, the hospital game's fun. The swerving, the doctor game, I guess is actually what it is. Swerving in and out, picking up, trying to collect the goodies. You can kind of cheese it though. If you just stay behind the nurse that is losing the equipment, and you go at a moderate pace, which is fast enough to get to the end, and really getting to the end is where you're going to pick up your money. Because I think you get like $15 for every second that's left, and you start with 99 seconds. So you can kind of cheese that one, but if you don't cheese it and try to collect things while avoiding the guys on the crutches, stuff like that, fun mini game.
Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah, I like the doctor mini game. I like the chowder mini game. We didn't get to that one on the Amigos
Which
Plays.
a lot of people hate that one.
I like any kind of whack-a-mole type scenario.
Yeah.
So I can tell you my least favorite game is the other one that we didn't get to on the Amigos Plays, the boxing.
Yeah.
To me, that's very frustrating. It's the platforming is very reminiscent of the storming the fort in North and South. That's inexorably linked in my mind. Those two games.
The sad thing is, if the episode of that is a great episode, very iconic Stooges episode where, I mean, it's just like the game. Curly is fighting the champ. He has to last so many rounds for them to get paid, and Curly can only fight when he hears "Pop Goes the Weasel," and so the whole in the short, here's Larry trying to get they break his violin. By the way, Larry was a violinist. He could actually do that. And Larry,
all those guys, all the Marx Brothers and all those guys, they were all
any vaudeville guys,
they could do it all.
And also, Larry was a superb dancer, if you can believe that. But that boxing mini game, and the thing is, the elements are there. That could have been a good game, but it was just poorly executed. That was the weakest game. I agree with you. Would you say that?
No, I think the oyster one is. The soup.
I like the oyster one. It's also wacky.
Yeah.
My favorite.
I like Curly's big face above the bowl.
Yeah, my favorite is the pie throwing. I always like that was hilarious, and also it's good to hit those stuffed shirts with the pie. The doctor one I think is good, but the pie is my favorite. But I like beating the crap out of the Stooges. One thing we should mention is there's a game where the square is just Moe sticking his fingers in Curly's eyes. And if you pick that, they just go to this empty area, and you can beat the tar out of you play Moe and you beat up Larry and Curly, and they'll try to duck and dodge, but if you hit them enough, that's how you slow the hand down on the chart. So when it moves, it'll go slower, and it's easier not to get your fingers ripped off by the mousetrap. And I love beating the crap out of those guys, and you can sell in the game. It's a lot of fun. Really, I mean, a lot of people. This game, there are people that it's a lot like the Stooges themselves. Someone famous said there are people that like the Stooges, and then there are people that wonder why other people like the Stooges. This game is like that. Some people do not like this game. They do not like it, and some people love it. I'm in the love it camp. It's better than the sum of its parts. And the mini games, of all the mini games, right? I think there's only one dud, and I think the dud is the boxing one. And even it can be sort of fun. I stink at it, and I've never seen one do well at it.
No, I've never beaten it.
So I'm in the camp that likes it.
I do agree with you that this game is definitely more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
I just don't think that it's a great game. I think it's a good game. And I think that it's better than Defender of the Crown. It's the games are more playable than even the boxing game plays better than any of the games on Defender of the Crown in terms of knowing what you're doing and being able to accomplish it. So I think that it was
a bold statement. So.
I think it was a win for CinemaWare in that regard. But if you put it up against a non-CinemaWare title, I think it falls a little flat.
My biggest issue with the game, actually I have lots of issues with the game. This is a game I would not go back to and play again and again. I think it has very little replayability. The pacing is so slow for a license that is so slapstick and in your face, at least in bursts. You pick your square, and then they slowly walk to the next scene. And then they talk about what they're going to do. And you can't skip it. And then you get to play something fun for a minute and a half. And then you pick your next square.
Mm-hmm. I will say that the NES version removes a lot of the loading times and the general slowness.
Yeah.
But at the sake of not looking as good.
But here's the downfall. If you remove that stuff, then you get sick of the mini games before you're even done with 30 days.
Yeah.
I can't deny anything you said. The load times, and that was a very that was a complaint that was issued quite a bit, was that the load times were rough. Plus the non-skippable. I'm torn on that part. I understand why you wouldn't like it, but that part sort of that's the part of it that makes it sort of cinematic. You're walking to the spot. I know you see it over and over. I'll grant you that, but. I can understand what people.
And it would be different if when you were walking to the spot, like you could see anything other than a block or a brick wall. It would have been great if there was like a shot of them walking through a park or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's sometimes they walk through different areas, but a lot of times there's not much to look at. So there you go. Those are, and I love the game, but I can't deny both those are true. The load times are brutal.
This is an excellent game to play once.
I found myself going back to it. I've went back to it years and years and years. It's when I found out about Amiga emulation, it's the first thing I loaded up was Three Stooges. I play it. I don't know. It's a guilty pleasure of mine that I can't deny.
Yeah, I've played this game a lot, and I would go back to it and play it again. But the faults are definitely there.
I want to touch on here's just something wacky that I wanted to touch on. Let's talk about the people that made this. Incredible Technologies. All right. This is a wacky company. They're still around, and for a big reason. They are the Golden Tee people.
Oh.
So a lot of people...
you can kind of see that even back then.
They make the very popular golf series. But I was looking down the list. I went to their website just to do a little research. And their history and stuff, it's not that big a deal. But the games they've made, up to a point, are real wacky. I just wanted to touch on a couple of these. They had a TurboGrafx release, and it was a game called Battle Royale. And this game sort of has a following. I've got a TurboGrafx, and this is one of the ones I looked at to get. I don't know much about it, but I've heard people talking about it. They made they made some PlayStation stuff, but the things I like, they made DuckTales on the Amiga. They only had a few Amiga releases, and DuckTales was one.
It's not a good game. It's nothing.
The Quest for the Gold.
It's nothing like the NES.
I kind of figured that, and they also had a thing called Balance of Power, but they also did a game we covered, Winter Games.
Oh, okay.
They did Winter Games, which I thought was wacky, and that's all they did for the Amiga. But they've done a bunch of other crazy stuff. They did some C64 stuff too, but their arcade stuff, they released a lot of stuff in the arcade, right? And a lot of stuff you probably wouldn't think twice about. Right? Capcom Bowling was theirs.
Huh. Well, here's an interesting fact.
Yeah.
The first arcade game I ever owned was Golden Tee 97, and it came in a Capcom Bowling cabinet.
That is why. Did you know? So you knew about them making?
No, I had no idea.
Well, there you go. Yeah. They also made, and I love this game. I know you loved it. Time Killers was one of theirs.
That's a fighting game, right?
Yes, it is.
Strata and Time, but that was one of theirs. They did Hard Yardage. You remember that one?
Yes, that's because it had the same digitized graphic type stuff, right?
They did Bloodstorm, which is a sequel to Time Killers. I've always heard that. I always heard that Time Killers I think we may have covered it somewhere way back. That Time Killers had Amiga-based hardware in it to a certain degree, but
I remember you saying
yeah, I may have disproved it in that episode. I can't remember. But here's the crowning jewel to the incredible technologies: is they made Street Fighter the movie. That was one of theirs.
Oh, wait a minute. Does that also... No, scroll down there. Ninja Clowns?
Yep.
That
Strata.
is a great game.
I've not heard of that one.
Rim Rockin'... Oh, basketball. Okay, that's not
Yeah,
what
you
I
can
thought
see
it
that. You
was.
see that.
They also made Peggle, but not the Peggle that you know. It's a different.
Yeah, they did a lot
Then
of
they kind
stuff.
of went sportsy.
Well, I cut it off here because after this it was like Golden Tee 2, son of Golden Tee, Golden Tee Strikes Back, more Golden Tee, Golden
T
ST.
were just swimming in money.
Yeah.
Ninja Clowns is a Final Fight type game.
Oh, okay.
And it's sort of like Sunset Fighter, or I can't remember the game.
Sunset
name.
Riders?
Riders.
So they've got again. Here's a company that's still around. So and they had several Amiga releases. So good for them. You know, they're doing something right. I looked this up on eBay. This game is by far, of all the games we've covered, this is the easiest one to get hold of, and I'm not surprised. The box is cool looking. The UK box, I guess maybe it was a re-release. So it's got a duddy.
What?
Not duddy, a dud.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The American release was this bright yellow box. It looked like a movie bill in the front, you know, and it's real cool looking. The UK one was sort of that, but it was like surrounded by like a silver box. So I'm guessing maybe it was a re-release or something like that. This thing's also in bundles, but I didn't see the bundles for sale. Anyway, in the US, $30 to $70 shipped. You can take one home, US dollars. UK, 25. I saw them all ranging all the way up to 100. I didn't see any that didn't have the box and all the stuff. Everything, so there was no discs only versions. So it's an easy pickup if you wanted it. I don't think this had a company release that I don't remember it having one, but I could be wrong.
I think you're right. I think I would have downloaded and played it before.
But overall, again, we think we pretty much touched on it. But I give it a thumbs up.
Oh, what about? Did you check on any reviews? Any?
I did actually. The reviews were
Spectacular.
they were mixed. In all honesty,
They were from the lowest were in the 70s, and the highest were in the 90s.
yeah, like
mostly positive.
yeah, and mostly it's funny. I looked at all the magazines I saw reviewing this were real obscure. I didn't see the big ones. I don't know what that. Maybe they weren't around in '87.
It's true.
You know, so I don't know. I'd be interested to see if this, like I said, I'd be interested to see that remastered version, see what that looks like. Oh, one last thing I should mention, the Three Stooges movie that was out a few years ago, which is funny. I just saw this movie probably a month ago. I just watched it for the first time, and it's pretty good. It's definitely in the spirit of the Stooges. This movie we could do a podcast on the history of this film, trying to get it made, because at first this had Mel Gibson was attached. It had all these big stars were attached to this movie, and they've slowly fallen out over the years. It was a Coen Brothers movie, and what you had left were three guys that did a phenomenal job. The script was good. It was as Three Stooges as you could get, and it was directly based on the game. The exact plot of the game is the plot of the movie. So that's kind of neat. I mean, I don't know if they actually. I don't know, but I mean, it's a pretty generic plot, granted.
It's also the plot of the Blues Brothers.
Sorta.
There's an orphanage.
They don't get to
They
marry
need to
anybody.
save.
They go to jail. Plus, they're crooked. Three Stooges are crooked.
Just saying.
Where's the...
And that's, so the movie I recommend if you're a Three Stooges fan. Not everyone's going to like it, but I thought it was good. Have you guys seen the movie?
I have not.
No. Now, Bo, you told me you've never seen a Three Stooges
I've
short
never
in your life.
seen a three. The only thing I know from the Three Stooges is the NES game, and when they were on the new Scooby-Doo Adventures, the same one that Phyllis Diller and all those people were on.
I find that utterly baffling, and I'll tell you why. I was talking to my buddy at work. I said, I'm going to review the Three Stooges tonight on the podcast. He goes, the Three Stooges? I love those guys. He's
12.
He's 4 years older than me, and everyone of our age knows the Three Stooges and the Little Rascals. Have you ever seen Little Rascals?
No.
Our Gang, Alfalfa, nothing. When we were young in America, these shows were on all the time in the mornings. Every morning before school, Three Stooges, Little Rascals. They were on all the time. And so everyone of my generation, pretty much, I'd say my generation. Do you remember watching when you were a kid?
I did not. I know of them. I was a casual viewer, but I definitely never went out of my way to watch either.
I'd say everyone from my generation back knows the Three Stooges.
I know who they are.
No, and knows them intimately and watched them, and loves them, or at least has seen some of their stuff. They've got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and when it was unveiled, it was the biggest crowd ever to watch someone get a star. So that shows you, and this was like '93 or something. They won an MTV Lifetime Achievement Award. That shows you the span of guys that started in the '30s.
Well, a lot of people consider them trailblazers too, even though really they just did what the people before them were doing. They did it very well, and they did it for a long time.
Oh, really? Who was doing this before them?
Well, I mean,
I'm sure there were vaudeville acts where people pretended like they hit each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's just slapstick.
Who could say? But it worked. It stuck. A lot of vaudeville acts. You ask kids now, there's a better chance people know who they are than Abbott and Costello or any of those other vaudeville acts.
Well, yeah, because there was a movie that just came out.
Well, Abbott and Costello are pretty famous, aren't they?
No,
do you think kids these days know anything about Abbott
and Costello had tons of movies, tons and tons.
Yeah, but not in the last decade.
Well, that's true. I guess I'm old, fans. I'm sorry. I know who they are. I listen to a lot of radio shows with them in it too. So there you go. Oh, and they also made a sneaky quick appearance in Mad World. That's a pretty popular movie. So if you've ever seen that, look for the Stooges.
Well, I'm going to challenge your knowledge.
Well, you'll probably. Okay, let's have it. I'll give it a shot.
And John, it'll be interesting to hear what you think the answer to these are. Although these are, to be fair, more of the actors than their characters.
All right.
Now, this first one, Aaron, I know you're going to know, but you sort of mentioned it, but let's see if John was paying attention.
What are we doing?
What type of therapy was Larry given for an acid burn he received as a child?
Is this in real life? Or,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, these are all.
It's kind of dark for a Stooges short.
Hey, let's burn Larry with acid. You know,
he later became Two-Face. Yeah. So, what treatment did he receive? Was it violin lessons? A, B, swimming, C, boxing, or D, running?
What do you think, Aaron?
He asked
Actually,
you.
maybe I should answer first. Well, we know that he plays the violin, but he probably does all those other things too. I'm going to say violin.
Aaron?
I'm going to say boxing. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Wow. No, it was violin.
Oh, who's the Stooges
well, he
expert
said violins.
now?
I don't want to take his answer.
Larry's father ran a jewelry shop, and as part of his job, he would test the metals to see if they were gold, by putting the acids on them. When Larry was a child, he picked up one of the bottles thinking it was something to drink, and his dad slapped it out of his hands, but before he got there in time, he had spilled some of the acid on his arm. When they took him, they had to take him to the doctor. It was bad. I mean, they had to put skin grafts on his arm, the whole 9 yards. And the doctor said, look, to get the strength in that arm up, take up the violin. It'll really help him out.
It worked.
And that is also the him having the violin in the show.
Yeah, I knew he could actually play. Yeah, my Stradivarius, he says, as the thing is broken.
Which is always odd. You'd think they'd just be able to sell the Strad and get the money for the orphanage, but I guess neither here nor there. All right, here's one, Aaron. I feel confident that you will know. What is Curly's first name? Is it A, Gerard, B, Jerome, C, James, or D, Jeffrey?
Oh boy, Curly's first name. I know Moe's first name. Read those again. Let me read those names again real quick.
A,
Jeffrey, and what was
Jerome. A, Gerard, B, Jerome, C, James, or D, Jeffrey.
Let's go with B.
Gerard.
I believe
Uh-oh.
No, wait a minute.
It appears that I've actually forgot to answer this myself, but I'm almost sure the answer is Jeffrey. If someone could quickly look that up in Aaron's notes. First page.
It's not on the first page.
Okay, several pages in.
So we have to look up your trivia answers?
That's what makes it fun!
We should win by default.
His real name is Jerome.
So I
Jerome. Here's the trivia bit that I got
nice
so
work.
excited.
So I was right.
I got so excited.
You
I
missed
actually
your own
forget the
trivia answer.
Curly was sometimes called Jerry or Babe. Being the baby of the family, Mother Jenny would affectionately call him Curly, my baby. His brothers used this to tease him and eventually came up with the other nickname of Babe. It stuck, and Mo would often call him by Babe.
Yeah, that I've heard. Can you imagine a big guy like that called him Babe? What,
Like Babe Ruth.
Well, yeah.
So, which Stooge owned a furniture store? A. Larry, B. Curly, C. Mo, or D. Shep?
Shemp. I think it was Shemp.
I'm going to go with Mo. He seems like a furniture store.
It actually was Mo.
Oh, good job.
When he was released by Columbia Pictures in 1957, he said, "Oh, I'm going to sell furniture." And that's what
I
he
learned
did.
that from the last episode of The Wonder Years. That's what his dad
There
went
you
on
go.
to do. He opened a furniture store. Actually, I guess I should get the door.
That's okay. I will quiz Aaron
Right.
for the final question. All right, Aaron.
Okay.
This is one that we even talked about earlier tonight.
All right.
Not on the podcast. How many different trivia questions are there in the Three Stooges game?
Oh, boy. Okay. Do I get that?
Yeah, I will give you some choices here. A, 35.
Uh-huh.
B, 64.
Uh-huh.
C, 71. Or D, 94.
I'm going to go with 64.
You're correct. There were 64 questions in the game. The way this was found out, because, 64 is a huge number to randomly pick up on.
Right.
People throughout the years actually took hex editors and opened up the game to look to see the trivia questions, and they're just there in plain text.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
That's how we know how many there are.
Beautiful, and I like the fact that there's trivia in the game. There's a certain amount of love that went into the game. Like I said, it has its shortcomings, granted, but it's a heartfelt thing. In fact, I believe it was Moe's widow came and saw, or it might have been his daughter, but came to the studios and looked at the game and was wept. She loved it so much. This was fully endorsed by the Stooges families, and it was a very popular.
There was no question it was true to its source material,
Yeah.
which, you can't say about a lot of games.
The vast majority of games with television or movie licenses
Yeah.
are not so. Well, let's go ahead and thank our sponsors. We'd like to thank Loggins, Jonas Rulo, Kolbjorn Barman, Tapes from the Crypt. I do that every week. Adam Bradley, Chris Folds, Will Williams, Daniel Bingston, Zach Zimmerman, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Chad Halstead, Brent Dowdy, and our newest contributor, Lauren Giroux. And we hope that Lauren and all of our fans in France are doing okay.
Yeah, that sucks.
We're thinking of you. Next week, we are going to take a look at the arcade shooter Silkworm.
Oh,
So that's one
see, now I'm going to have to come back.
Yeah.
Too good to miss.
Yeah. So we'll see you then. Until next time, adios.